Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. I'm your host, Melinda Moulton, and today I have with me two gentlemen I'm going to interview, Neil Offen and Mitch Stevens. Hi, guys.
Hey, Melinda.
How are you?
Good.
Doing
Doing
well.
well?
Good. Great.
Good. Well, I'm so excited about this half an hour we're going to have together. You are both collaborators. So let me introduce my viewers to you. First, Mitch Stevens was a professor of journalism in the Carter Institute at New York University. He is the author of A History of News, a New York Times Notable Book of the Year. Stevens also has written several other books on journalism and media, including Beyond News, The Future of Journalism and the Rise of the Image, the Fall of the Word. He published Imagine There's No Heaven, How Atheism Helped Create the Modern World. Stevens was a fellow at the Shorenstein Center at Harvard's Kennedy School. He shares Lowell Thomas's love of travel and had the privilege of following Thomas's tracks through Colorado, Alaska, the Yukon, Europe, Arabia, Sikkim, and Tibet. He was the writer and co-collaborator on the film Voice of America, Lowell Thomas and the Rise of Broadcast News, shown on 93% of all PBS stations across the country. Is that about right, Mitch?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's you. Hello there, my friend. Now, Neil Offen, let me tell you about Neil. He has been a humor columnist for 4 decades and on 2 continents. He is the author of more than a dozen books. He's been a sports reporter, a newspaper and magazine editor, a radio newsman, written a nationally syndicated funny comic strip, and been published in a variety of formats, including pen, crayon, chalk, and once, under duress, his wife's eyebrow pencil. He has interviewed Muhammad Ali, covered Apollo 11, ridden the Orient Express, and once met Cary Grant. Lauded as that guy by the New York Times and hailed as him by National Public Radio, Offen has been named un homme très étrange, the highest honor the French government can bestow on someone who cannot pronounce ratatouille. Most importantly, he actually finished first in his age group in a recent 5K and just finished writing the book, Building a Better Boomer, which I just purchased last night.
Well, thank you. So you haven't finished reading it yet?
I have not finished reading it. I haven't even read it. So I've ordered it. But being a boomer myself, I would like to know how to build a better boomer. Although I think I'm pretty special, but I need to read your book. So gentlemen, you both are illustrious, newsworthy, exciting and important. I'm so thrilled to have you. But today, what I want to talk to you about is your new website, Writing About Our Generation, which is garnering tremendous attention and bringing to it fabulous writers who are contributing some great essays about our generation. But first off, let's talk about your friendship. You two have known each other for a long time. Tell us a little bit about that friendship.
Mitch, you want to go ahead and talk about how we bonded over cheap wine in the south of France?
1984, I think. And
It may have been 83 or 84, yeah.
I was on sabbatical. I wanted to go to Zimbabwe, but we had 2 young kids, and my wife insisted on south of France. And I think the meeting was in a playground through our kids, obviously, and looking for other people who could tolerate our lack of French. For kids to play with, and we've stayed in touch ever since. I think I helped him move from New York to North Carolina. I drove the U-Haul.
Yes, you did. I did drive a little bit of it, but you were more comfortable driving it. This was when we moved back from France to the US. And we had had stuff in storage for a decade. And Mitch and I went around to different places in the New York metropolitan area, gathering our old stuff and driving it down I-95. You drove much better than I did. You were much more comfortable driving than I was.
And you both, so it's a 40-year friendship that started in southern France, and you're both writers, and have had illustrious writing careers. I mean, truly notable careers. So have you collaborated before on any projects before writing about our generation?
I don't think we have, but we have been talking about the website, writing about our generation for 9 months, Mitch, a year. How long has it been?
Yeah, it took a while to get going on it and get it all together and get it up. And it's been that long, and we both kind of wanted to have a place where we could comment on our generation and where we could publish our thoughts and also get some of the great writers we know, Melinda, very well placed among them, to contribute. And we thought that there wasn't much being said. You know, the baby boomers, not a term we use too much, dominated culture for a while, but somehow, for some reason, they no longer do. And I think our story is still interesting, and our experiences are still interesting. And I think some of the energy and insight and desire to overturn things, revolutionary impulses that characterized our younger years are still there in most of us. And that's what we've been trying to give voice to. So pairing with Neil to edit this thing has just been great.
I think we felt, and I think it's been proven during the time that the website has been live, that we were not the only people of our generation who still had things to say, who wanted to look backwards, but also wanted to look forwards, wanted to look at today, and had interesting things to say. I think one of the things that I've been most struck by during this process is how many writers we've gotten who are not necessarily professional writers, but have interesting and important things to say about what it means to be a part of this generation. You know, as we say on the website, to be in your 60s, 70s, and 80s and look back on the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I think that that's been an extraordinarily rewarding part of this, to see that people who are city planners and psychiatrists and activists like yourself, Melinda, have interesting and important things to say. And it's been wonderful to be able to give them a place where they can say it.
Absolutely. So to my viewers, let me just share with you a little bit about this website. It's called Writing About Our Generation. And these are the two founders, Mitch and Neil. So this is right from the web. Yes, the name of the site is an obvious reference to the WHO. And yes, this website is for people who, while active participants in the 21st century, remember the music, culture, and politics of the 20th century. Those who remember the 60s and 70s and now contemplate what it means to be in our 60s and 70s and maybe 80s. We're imagining it as a place, this website, where we all can share thoughts about yesterday's culture, politics, technology, and wonder about today's. A place to reminisce about the past, confront the present, and ponder the uncertainties and maybe the certainties of tomorrow. So what brought you two together to create this website? What was your inspiration? I mean, at what point did you look at each other and say, hey, I think we should put together a website? I mean, it's kind of random, and you both are writers and you're encouraging other people to write, but a lot of the website has a lot of your own writing in it, which is fabulous. So what was your inspiration for the two
Well,
of you?
I think it's important to say that the very act of trying to do a website is an extraordinary amount of hubris, because our tech skills, I mean, we're two 70-year-old guys. We have a 74-year-old IT guy, that's Mitch. And the idea took a certain amount of hubris to think that we could do it. We knew we had things to write and could find others who could write. I don't think we really thought we had the technical ability to do this. Like I said before, I think this started sometime last year. Both of us are technically retired, which is to say that nobody pays us a weekly or monthly salary. We had the time and we had the interest. And I think over time, we talked more and more of, yeah, let's see if we can do this. And let's see if we can figure out the technical logistics of it and see, how far we can get with it. Mitch, is that how you remember it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of people are tired of hearing about the baby boomers and stuff, but I think our experience was really important. And I think we changed society in important ways. And all the music and the drugs and the back to nature stuff, uh, the house you and Rick have in Vermont, Melinda, the incredible house and that incredible field. And uh, we, I think we brought a lot to culture. And the fact that people are tired of us doesn't mean that we stopped thinking and that we haven't processed what's been going on now and all the incredible technological changes in this century and all the way life does continue to change and maybe needs to change more and all that revolutionary energy. That's not gone. Not from the people I know, and certainly not from the people that whose articles we publish. So I I I think I think that's an important thing. We still have stuff to say about the world, important stuff to say. And I haven't written another book in some years, and Neil just published another one. But uh but we want to keep this perspective going, and we want to continue our contributions to understanding the world and life,
And
and
ourselves.
yeah, and ourselves.
Well, and it's so interesting because in Europe, they revere their elders. There's a whole different energy around older people in Europe than there is. Wouldn't you agree than there is in this country?
I think that, as Mitch alluded to, the baby boom generation, our generation, dominated culture and politics and everything for so long that it ultimately led to a backlash. I think we've seen that over the last 15, 20 years. The okay boomer meme, things like that. And I think people got tired of us, and maybe we even got tired of ourselves. But I think, Mitch's point is really accurate, that the fact that we're no longer the dominant age cohort in this country, whether by numbers or by influence, doesn't mean we don't still have important things to say, and to say to ourselves and to say to the other generations as well.
Well, that's interesting because we have a president who's 81 and then this other guy, who's a few years younger. I mean, one of my things that I've been trying to understand is why a whole generation has been disenfranchised from our political world. That I think that we as a generation also have to learn how to step aside sometimes and let younger people step up, especially in our politics. We have two senators here in Vermont that are both well into their late 70s, and I love them both and they're incredible. But so that I think that's a whole nother issue here. But we also have some people from our generation who aren't really nice people. Who I always was reminded that we had a few presidents who I wasn't really happy with, and I was like, how did they come out of our generation? How did they come out of the generation that brought us civil rights and women's rights and Earth Day and everything else when they're so anti all the things that we believed in. And it came down to me, and I'm being somewhat facetious here, is they probably never took magic mushrooms. I mean, I don't know how they ended up being so different from us, but we do have some kind of bad people in our generation too. Not
Yeah, no,
bad.
you can't forget that I think it's 48% of young people at the time voted for Richard Nixon to be president. And, you know, and obviously many people in our generation supported the Vietnam War, and many of them went to
Many of them
fight the
served.
Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there was among a lot of us, I think, a perspective on the world that hadn't quite been seen before. And yes, we don't need to be in the White House necessarily, although I hope the guy who's currently there gets to stay. But and we don't need to run all the businesses. But I think our perspective is still important, and the way we look at the world and how we deal with the changes we've lived through. The wars we've lived through, the political changes we lived through, the liberations we lived through, which are, when you look at them, are amazing. What the women's rights and the struggle for civil rights and the struggle for gay rights.
But it's all reversing, and it's all reversing now. It's all going, I mean, here I am as a woman who fought for women's rights, and abortion wasn't legalized till 72. I was 22 years old when it finally was legalized, and now we're back to where we're going backwards, and a lot of it's from these, well, they're not necessarily old white men, but
A lot of them are.
So has what you're seeing in the world today inspired you to find the heat in your belly, to find that place from 40 years ago when we were out there fighting for all these things? To fight for it again?
I believe there is a story on the website, Melinda, by a woman whose name I can't remember, who wrote about why I'm still an activist at 74. That was your piece, obviously. And I think, I think many of us have become, I wrote a piece about why did so many of us become reactionary. And I think Mitch's point was that there were a lot of reactionaries back then as well. But the rule of thumb is that people become more conservative as they get older because they have more to conserve. But I think there is still a large percentage of us who are fighting for change, who are trying to reverse the backsliding of the last half a dozen years. And I think, as you well put it, Melinda, we're not going to change. We are who we are. We're still imbued. We may not be building encampments on college quads, but I think we're still believing in many of the same things that we believed in 50 and 60 years ago.
So let me ask you this. Some people are comparing the sit downs in the colleges over Gaza with our movement, and saying that they're in a derogatory way. And so how do we find?
Well, let me just say,
yeah.
And this is one of the things we're interested in. This is one of the things why there is the writing about our generation.com website, so we can think about these things and try to sort it out. And we did do an article on this subject, and it was written by Neil.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I talked about in the article is when we protested the war in Vietnam in 1967 and 68 and 70 and 72, and during that whole period, we had more on the line because we could have been drafted. We could have been sent to Vietnam. We have friends who moved to Canada and 60 years later are still in Canada. So there are differences. And there was more solidarity perhaps back then than there is now. But there are real similarities. There are real things to talk about. Do we support what's happening on college campuses now? These are questions that we really want to address.
Yep. So, gentlemen, writing about our generation.com to my viewers, Neil Offen and Mitch Stevens are my guests today, and they are the founders and notable writers whose work has been recognized all over the world. Please visit the website and read some of our essays. Would you both be willing to read one of your essays that you wrote to my viewers? I know that I've asked you to pick one out. Why don't we start with you, Mitch, and read one of your stories to my viewers? Would you do that?
Yeah.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for asking. This piece I wrote early in the history of the site that is not political. It's about how it begins. I was once young and busy and often, bored. It's not that I lack stuff to do. I am a New Yorker, but frequently while standing on a grocery line in the days when someone had to punch in the price of each item by hand, or waiting on Broadway and 86th Street to meet a tardy friend at a time when there was no way of contacting anyone anywhere beside in their office or home, or on a plane having finally finished Jane Eyre with 3 hours still to go until JFK and no other book in my briefcase, I was deathly bored. Currently, however, I am old and much less busy, but never bored. This reversal of the normal order of things is, in one sense, not a reversal of the normal order of things. Very young people were, and still are indeed, particularly susceptible to boredom. I have grandchildren. I often hear, "What can I do now?" Still, I think it's a big deal that I, and presumably others of our generation, do not suffer from boredom as an old person, but did as a college-age person and a middle-aged person. And I can't say it's attributable, in my case, to spiritual progress or a late life flourishing. I hope it's not attributable to dementia. I have freed myself from boredom because technology finally devoted itself in recent decades to making sure we have constant access to a robust and steady flow of information and entertainment. You never finish the internet. Maybe I'll stop there and let Neil read a story.
I love that, Mitch. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I love that piece. How about you, Neil? Would you be willing to read one of your pieces from writing about?
I would. I'm honored to do so. I want you to know that's probably Mitch's shortest piece for the website. I write shorter, Mitch writes longer. We figure right in the middle, we have found a good median. This is a more recent piece that was on the website. Technology helps keep us alive. It also helps keep the idea of us alive after we're dead. My voicemail box now includes 4 messages from people who are no longer living. Some of them, in fact, have been dead for some time. I haven't erased the messages, although they fill up space in the voicemail box, and there is no practical purpose for them to still be there. But I still don't want to get rid of them, erase them from my machine, delete them from my life. And I know I am not alone in doing this or not doing this. In past eras, we would hold on to old photographs or letters or meaningful mementos of those no longer with us. In our tech era, I've read about people even finding ways to keep a loved one's voicemail greeting, usually a parent or close relative who has died. This is now so common, there's even a new service that can do it for you automatically, saving a loved one's voicemail greeting as an MP3 file you can keep. My messages from the dead aren't from loved ones. All 4 of the people are friends who have passed away during the last decade or so. The voicemails are mundane, normal messages you'd expect to get from friends. Can we get together for lunch next Tuesday? Just calling to say hi. I can meet you for coffee next week. How about the week after? Hey, give me a call when you get a chance. They were messages left without the awareness that they would be the last messages, sometimes the last contact at all that I would have with these people. They were messages left when people already had serious health problems or when they had no idea at all that they would be gone reasonably soon. I think I'll stop there then.
Thank you, gentlemen, for reading your essays. To my viewers, I'm talking to Neil Offen and Mitch Stevens about their new website, writingaboutourgeneration.com. I suggest you visit it. Fabulous essays by a fabulous group of writers. You can get on their mailing list. You'll hear from them every week with all their new essays. Thank you for doing that. So I want to go back to talking about the future of our world. What do you believe is the most challenging issue of these times that we are living in?
I don't want to speak for Mitch. I mean, it's easy to say global warming. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. Mitch and I probably disagree about this, but I wonder, and I sort of alluded to it in that piece I read, I wonder if the technology that we all rely on, those wonderful little computers that are in our pockets, the promise was that it would bring us all together. I'm wondering, and I fear that it's separating us all apart. So those are the two things that I think are the main issues. How do we come together when we're all typing on a keyboard?
Well, Neil, it brought you to me.
That's true.
I would, and all my viewers would not have. So I think probably I land a little bit with Mitch on this because I personally have connected with people I knew 50 years ago that I've never, but anyway, I get it. It's a scary time, and certainly with our young children. What about you, Mitch? Where do you land on the most challenging issue of our times?
Well, I'm an obnoxious optimist. uh, uh, and uh, and it's not a very fashionable position to hold nowadays. And I think this is kind of significant. I'm concerned about all this gloom we're spreading, particularly among young people. People who don't want to have kids because how could you bring someone into this world? Man, I'm so happy I brought kids into this world and have given them a chance to live this amazing, difficult thing called life. And no, I don't think, we're all going to be living underwater. Global warming is terribly important, and we have to do things to turn it around. But I think we can get too much into doom and gloom, and I think a lot of ways things have gotten better. We were talking about the various liberation movements that our generation was part of. Imagine what it was like to be a gay person back when we were young. I mean, most of my gay friends weren't out of the closet then. I didn't know a lot of them were gay. Imagine what they had to hide and how it limited their ability to love openly and to start families. Things have changed in a lot of positive ways. And I'm one of my books is a history of journalism. And one thing you learn from the history of journalism is people always think it's the worst of times. They always think nothing has ever been better. They think we're all going to hell in a handbasket. And so I think that is the cause of a lot of my optimism. I have a tendency to stand back from those feelings.
What about pineapple on frozen pizza? I mean, isn't that a sign of global doom?
You have a point there. Maybe I'll change my
See,
perspective.
I
Yeah.
think you have to take that into consideration.
Well, how perfect that the two of you are sort of the yin and yang of this collaboration, quite frankly. I mean, that I just was at a gathering. It was a Bernie Sanders event, and Bill McKibben was speaking, and also the head of the Sierra Club. And they were talking about all the great stuff going on in technology. That really, that this whole thing with climate change, that we're down like 2 degrees from where we thought we would be because of all the solar and wind that's going on. And they said, yeah, we've got this over here. And these are guys who are very sort of pessimistic about everything for years. And to hear them talk about the hopes for the future of where we're going as a humanity was really encouraging. So, Mitch, Neil, we're coming to the end of this, which I shouldn't say this word, but it kind of pisses me off because I could talk to you forever. So Neil, you had a near fatal heart attack, but you just finished second in a 5K race just a few months ago after you recovered.
Well, no, second in my age group, there were some 20-year-olds who
Right,
did
but
do a little faster than I
who
was.
cares about
And it's important to acknowledge, though I should say this with a quiet voice, that the number of people in my age group was fairly limited, but I did come in second in my age group.
after almost a near fatal heart attack?
5 months after the near fatal heart attack, I was dead on the table, and now, you wonder. I wrote a piece for the website some months ago that I've been given this great gift, and now I have to figure out how to unwrap it. And I'm wondering, am I unwrapping it so I can ruin my knees running more? But yeah, I guess I'm doing that.
Well, bravo to you. Now, Mitch, you've been doing Ironman competitions, Ironman, which includes biking, running, and swimming. And you've been doing pretty well in your age group.
Yeah, well, not the actual Ironman is a longer triathlon. But I do triathlons, and I have one in my age group, and I graduate to a new age group this year, so I'll be the youngest person in my age group. So I'm going to the national championships. Not that I'm a national champion at
Oh
this,
my
but
God. Well, where's that going to be?
maybe.
I want to be there. Where's that going to be?
It's usually Milwaukee, but it's gonna be in Atlantic City, which is very convenient for me from New York. Yeah.
It's my old
So
stomping ground. I may have to come down and
yeah.
cheer you on. So for the two of you, you're extraordinary in what you're doing. And so we're coming to the end of our interview here. And to my viewers, I really encourage you to go to www.writingaboutourgeneration.com and read these fabulous and fun essays. And if you feel inclined, get involved, sign up for the email that comes out every week. And to the two of you, Neil Offen and Mitch Stevens, what a joy to spend a half an hour with you. And I hope that you'll come back onto my show down the road, and I will continue to submit my essays. And thank you for allowing me to do that, because I have a lot to say, and I love reading all of yours. And especially, Mitch, I loved Esther's piece on your relationship. I mean, I got to tell you, that one was.
You want to say the title of the piece, Melinda?
Well, what was it again? I hate my
It
husband.
was I Hate My Husband. This is my wife wrote this.
Esther, and it's so Esther, and it's a beautiful piece called I Hate My Husband. And then I wrote, and I followed up with me and my husband being a sexy couple. So, I mean,
right up at the top of our website now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're putting ourselves out there to all of you. So www.writing about our generation, go visit it. And thank you for tuning in today. And thank you to the two of you for being on my show. I love you both, and we will talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thanks, Melinda.